Hey guys, you're listening to the pilot episode of LAFC Radio. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at It's Jacinho. So, season opener, Saturday, 3 o'clock, against Austin FC. This should be a really exciting game. I personally can't wait, to get things started. And I think there's a lot of buzz around LAFC at the moment. We have some really good players that are healthy that people are excited about seeing. Obviously, Vela and Rossi, and a lot of expectations. For this team, seventh place. Last season in the Western Conference probably was a little underwhelming. We'll get into it. But ultimately, there's a lot of high expectations for this team, and I expect them to deliver. And I have a really, really awesome guest on the show today. His name is Gio Garcia from LA Soccer Hub, and he was kind enough to sit here and talk to me for about an hour about LAFC. So I'm going to go ahead and add him in now. Hey, Gio, how are you?
Hey, Jessica, how's it going?
Good, good, good.
Thank you for having
So
me on.
of course, no problem. I just I found you on Twitter. That's how we find people these days. I don't even use like LinkedIn or Google or anything professional. I just look on Twitter and see, what's going on, and you popped up right away, and I thought, he's probably a good person to get on the pilot episode of this, just to, you know, get things started. Very knowledgeable, knows things about both LA teams and the MLS. So perfect guest. But let's just start off with the fans. A limited amount of fans will be able to be at the home opener. How, even though it's like a limited amount of fans after a year of social distancing and COVID-19, the pandemic and things like that, this has to be a big deal for soccer fans and the team at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to congratulate you, the work you've done and, for inviting me here. I wish you nothing but success. I know how it is to start something from scratch, obviously with LA Soccer Hub. So kudos to you and the work that you're doing. Yeah, obviously to the fans. So what I've been told, well, let's start with this past weekend. They had a preseason game. There were just over 700 uh, essential workers that LAFC allowed to the game, which is exciting, right? This is the first time they actually get to see their team in what it seems like over a year, if not close to that. But yeah, for as far as I know, the last time I spoke, with the source within the team, they were telling me that about 4,400 fans were going to be let in. That's about 20% of the stadium, right? The stadium holds about 22,000 fans. And I think, and it's going to go off by seniority, right? And, the team has figured out how they're going to do. And, there's going to be some fans that may not be able to go to the game, but from what I've been told, they're going to be rotated in. And as California opens up, I'm assuming that number is going to increase. It could change by the week, it can change by the day. But the best part about it is having fans. There are a few things that, LAFC just released as well about, they're going to, obviously you're going to have to wear a mask, social distance. They're not going to allow bags into, they're going to have a bags and parking policy. They're going to have like food and cashless pay. So they're really, on top on top of things. And I think the most thing, it's everybody's just excited to see their team play at home, right? And then you also think about, Austin FC. They're the new team to join the MLS, right? We know Matthew McConaughey is an owner of the team, and I think that's as far as we all know. To be quite honest, we don't necessarily know the team wise, right, how they're going to look, but we know that I expect them to come out strong. They know they're going to play a strong LAFC team, and I expect this to be an entertaining game because one, with the fans, it's going to be, like I said, it's been over a year since they're going to be led into the stadium. They get to see Carlos Vela, they get to see Diego Rossi, and to be back home, and it has to be an exciting feeling.
Yeah, 100%. And I think most players have spoken about, regardless of what league it's in, that not having fans has been devastating for them. I just imagine from their perspective, looking up at the empty stands, it has to feel sterile and just very different from what they're used to. So from both sides, from a fan perspective and a player perspective, this has to be a good first step in getting things back to normal, as normal as possible, even with masks and things like that. But let's just kind of go back to what you're saying about Matthew McConaughey, invested in Austin FC. it has to be a good thing for the MLS to have A-list celebrities buying into this league. What do you think the ceiling is for the MLS, and how important is it for celebrities to continue to be involved in the evolution of this league?
Yeah, I mean the ceiling. I don't know. It keeps getting higher and higher, right? You had right with LAFC, right? You had Will Ferrell, you have a Nomar Garcia Par, you have Magic Johnson, right? Obviously, we're in LA, Hollywood. You got all the big names out here, but Matthew McConaughey, who's from Austin, who's from Texas, I think that represents a lot. You want someone that represents your city, your town, and who better than to be Matthew McConaughey, right? He's out there vocal, he's wearing the jerseys and stuff. I think that only elevates the league, right? And whether if you're a fan of celebrities or not, but that helps the league grow, whether you see it or not. And then on top of that, you also see NBA players. James Harden with the Houston. I'm forgetting the name. I was going to say Houston. The team from Houston, I can't even think the name, but then you also got Kevin Durant, with the Philadelphia Union. So you're starting to see a trend here that a lot of A-list celebrities are seeing as a possibility to own a team, because owning an MLS team is a lot more feasible than owning an NBA team, which is every team is close to $1 billion, right? Or an NFL team. So this is a lot more feasible, and this is also a way that they can connect with their fans. So I really like the move. I really like what Matthew McConaughey is doing. I really like that. I see things between him and Will Ferrell, right? I think it's only
Hilarious.
it's only gonna elevate the league, right? And if it's done right, and if you have an essential brand ambassador like Matthew McConaughey, like Will Ferrell, that's going to be in the game, then they're going to be invested. You don't just want someone invested with their money. You want someone invested with their emotions, being at the game and being that brand ambassador for the team. And that's what I see from both of these, Matthew McConaughey and Will Ferrell.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's exciting times for the MLS. And just a sidebar, that I was watching the US men play a game. I forget who they were playing against, but they battered the team. And Alexi Lawless was talking about how the evolution of the MLS has been so interesting in the last couple of seasons, because it's become less of a buying club and more of a buying league. It's becoming more of a selling league. And I think that's important. Other European leagues are actually looking at the MLS as a place to come and get talent, and I know this is a little bit far off from like season opener, but ultimately this league is getting better and better and better. Just from the 90s when the league was started, it's evolved so much, and I'm super excited to see where everything goes, but let's just kind of go back to the home opener. After placing, in the top three for the Western Conference for the last 2 years running, it's safe to say that coming in seventh place last season was a disappointment, for the team, the club in general. So I was reading kind of, what those reasons might have been, from outsider perspectives, analyst perspectives, and front house decisions was a big topic of discussion. Selling Tyler Miller, not re-signing Steven Bidishore as well, and Walker Zimmerman leaving and ending up at Nashville. LAFC did acquire some new defenders. I think Murillo and Kim Moon Wan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But is that
Mm-hmm.
the answer to their defensive woes? It seemed like defense was a big issue, not having key members of that defense, at the team, and having to switch around the center back pairings to try to find something really unsettled the team last season.
Yeah, well, let's start like how last season started last year for LAFC. I think I think the move that surprised everybody, like literally everybody, was the Walker Zimmerman trade to Nashville. And the reason, right, way they did it was for dollars, right? They're going to get money. They got about $1.25 million for Walker Zimmerman. That is a lot to get from a defender. But I think he was what was more made it so interesting. He was a cornerstone of that defense. He was the heart and soul of that defense. And when I first heard the news, I was kind of like, and I was like, no, this is not true. That's not happening. And then you're like, okay, it's actually really happening. And that's how they started the season. And kind of, okay, I was like, okay, maybe, they have a backup. They were looking at Dejan Djokovic to be the backup. Point of the matter is, the players that they expected to step up unfortunately did not step up. And LAFC started the season pretty strong. They played Leon at home. They won that game at home, right? They ended up moving in the CONCACAF Champions League. They ended up moving on, right? Winning at home. But then the pandemic hits, right? Then the pandemic hits, everything happens. And then I think the Walker Zimmerman thing started to linger because he knew what to do. He knew what to do in the defense. He really knew his teammates. He was getting along with Eddie Segura. He was learning Spanish so he can talk with Eddie Segura, who's Colombian, who predominantly only speaks Spanish. Obviously understands English, but you had a player that was invested, was heart and soul of the team, and I think that trade really caught everybody by surprise. And then you see, in the MLS's back tournament, they were getting beat, and you really saw, throughout the regular season, that center back was one of their weakest spots. And a lot of fans I know were upset because of that Walker Zimmerman trade. And they ended up getting Jesus Murillo towards the end of the middle of the season. And obviously he was able to kind of fill those holes, but he only had I want to remember about a month or so until the season really ended. But I think the damage was done. When you look back at that trade, I don't think LAFC really they thought they had the horses, but unfortunately they didn't. And I think that was a questionable part, whether it was a front office, a head coaching staff. I think that's one of the questionable decisions a lot of fans I know really can't get over. But they did get Jesus Murillo. But the only caveat to that is what they let. If you look at the numbers, what they let Walker Zimmerman go for, 1.25 million. That's essentially what they paid for Jesus Murillo. So they didn't essentially get Jesus Murillo for anything less. It was essentially a wash, but you obviously the pandemic happened and everything like that, but you literally traded a player for the same amount. You got the center back, but you didn't win money wise or anything like that. And obviously Jesus Maria by far is a great signing, but I don't think that move had to happen. Obviously hindsight's 2020, we can talk about it, but I was surprised by that move. And I think now and when you look at this team, when it were trade rumors and stuff like that, I know people don't buy into this or that. But if they can move in, if they can trade Walker Zimmerman, I think they could trade any player except Carlos Vela, right? I think any player except Carlos Vela is available to be traded. And I don't know. I don't expect that to happen for this year for LAFC. But I think any player is open now. Obviously, they got Marco Fafan. This Marco Fafan was an offseason move, right? So they needed help, depth on the left hand side. We saw a little bit about preseason these last couple games, and Kim Moon Wan, we've only seen 30 minutes of him. He only played one preseason game, and that was only 30 minutes. He's dealing with the knee injury, and it's hard to judge a player off of 30 minutes. But he had two bad passes that that kind of let all the media that were there what kind of mixed feelings. And one, you wanted to see him. We didn't see him this past weekend in the final preseason game, because typically before the actual regular season starts, you want to see most of your guys play close to 90 minutes, right? So he didn't even make it onto the field. So I know Bob Bradley had mentioned, he said that his knee injury doesn't seem to be serious, but I don't know how true that is, because if he didn't play or didn't train with the team last week, I don't know if he'll be available this weekend against Austin FC.
Those are some interesting points. I remember kind of like after the preseason games were done, Latif Blessing was saying that, they were getting there, but the defensive issues are still kind of there and they need to tighten those up. It's one thing to have a really great attack, but if you leave the back door open, per se, what can you really do? But whether it's, growing pains from being like a new club or just making mistakes, like they're pretty much learning as they go. They've been relatively successful since, they've been a part of the league, so it's probably just a matter of learning, your lessons and making sure you don't repeat them in the future, getting rid of players and then having to replace them with new ones for relatively the same price is not moving in the right direction, so hopefully they kind of learned their lesson from that. But one thing you never can question about LAFC is their really dangerous attack. And, they had a player win league goal scoring title for the second consecutive season, Diego Rossi, obviously following Carlos Vela in that. And a healthy Carlos Vela and Diego Rossi has to be a big boost for LAFC going to the new season, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Diego Rossi and Carlos Vela, right? Left, and right side, right, back to back Golden Boot winners. I mean, it is a dream attack, right? Especially for the MLS. We know the damage that Carlos Vela can do, right? When he gets that ball on the left foot, right? He's explosive. He also tends to play in the middle at times. And Diego Rossi, right? The season, I felt like at times he carried the season. He carried the team last season and what he did. I feel like he really matured last season, and he really, put his team on the back during times. Obviously, COVID and national team duties, kind of mess with the rhythm and stuff. But nevertheless, I think Diego Rossi is a very interesting player because right now, some of the speculation out there about Diego Rossi is that the LAFC may potentially only have him till this summer transfer window, right? Because I think when you have a young, talented Uruguayan player who is killing it in MLS, the next step, in my opinion, has to be Europe. It has to be Europe, right? So I'm assuming that there's going to be interest out there from other MLS teams. Now, whether LAFC is willing to let him go or are they going to wait to the end of the year? But I think summertime. So I think if you start right, we're going to start the season this year. The summer transfer window starts about June, July. Correct? I don't remember which month. So let's say 2 to 3 months. So you literally have about 2 to 3 months with Diego Rossi. So that makes it very interesting because we know Carlos Vela staying here, but I think another piece to the puzzle is Corey Baird. Corey Baird is a guy that they picked up in this offseason. And I know there's mixed feelings about the fans about him because they've seen him play at Real Salt Lake. But I think what I saw in Corey Baird, these only two preseason games, in the second game, he looked more comfortable in the offense. And I think if Corey Baird and, there's a couple other players, Danny Masovsky, Mahala, they're potentially going to come off the bench. But if Corey Baird gets comfortable and understands his role and what he needs to do for LAFC, then I think this offense is going to thrive because essentially you just got, if he plays a false nine, they do the rotating three. Corey Baird had the assist on the first goal to Diego Rossi. That's what you want to see, right? You want to see him in assisting. But you also want to see Corey Baird score goals. And it's an explosive attack. It is one that a lot of people feel that LAFC may be have a weakness at center forward, and I'm more of the mindset of like, let's give Corey Baird 2 to 3 months. If he doesn't cut it in 2 to 3 months, if he doesn't cut it, you also got Danny Masovsky coming off the bench, Mahala. Depending on how the subs are, I think you got to give a player 2 to 3 months. But what I've seen in short of Corey Baird, I think I'm more positive about him than what I saw Brian Rodriguez the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, let's pick up on the Brian Rodriguez kind of scenario. Ultimately, he's still at Almeria, and it's inconclusive whether he'll be purchased outright by them, at the end of their season in May, and if he'll come back to LAFC. When I first started watching, obviously backstage we were kind of talking about, I've been pretty much watching the team and loving what I've seen for, the first season, the last season, really. I thought the balance of the three was really good with Rodriguez and Vela and Rossi. I understand that Rossi and Vela were extraordinary and they had the goals, really that end product. But I thought Rodriguez added something, a little bit of balance. And even though he added mostly assists, I thought it was a good fit. Do you believe that Barrett is a good replacement for him, can fill in that role and maybe do better than Rodriguez, because you were saying that some fans were, or you weren't necessarily excited about what Rodriguez was bringing to the table when he was here?
Yeah, I think, I've been kind of very vocal about, Brian Rodriguez, right? I think when you pay $11.5 million, you expect more than what was a 1 goal, 7 assists. I might have that wrong, but
2 goals,
you
yeah, 7 assists.
yeah, you expect more than that. I think the biggest thing that I realized from Rodriguez, he wasn't impacting the game. It wasn't a game that like you as a fan, you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember we won that game because of Brian Rodriguez, right? If you name any team, you name any player, right? You name Diego Rossi, you name Carlos Vela, you remember a game that they won you. Brian Rodriguez is a different story, and he comes with a big price tag. And it's unfortunate for him that the LAFC paid that money. But when a team pays that much money, there's expectations, whether you like it or not, and you play for the Uruguayan national team, you have to produce goals. If you think of Uruguayan players, Luis Suarez, right, Cavani, Forlan, the list goes on, right? Diego Rossi, right? Some names that were familiar. As a kid growing up watching the Uruguayan national team, that's what I expected of Brian Rodriguez. And because of the price tag, he came where he played a pairing role. He's playing on the national team. Now I don't know what was the reason why he wasn't able to execute. Maybe he was ready to leave LAFC. I think that's some of the speculations that we have is that his heart may not have been with LAFC and he was ready to go to Europe. And so that could have been the reason. But I think nevertheless, you want a player to produce, right? And if you're ready for Europe, then I think the MLS, you have to kill the MLS to prove that you're ready for Europe, right? If you're ready for Europe, and you have to prove on this stage that it's not as big as Europe, right? That you're dominating, and he wasn't dominating that. I think his lack of finishing, being able to finish in front of goal, his at times to getting back on defense. And if we talk about LAFC, they made it to the final. It's the CONCACAF final, the most important game in LAFC's short history. Brian Rodriguez did not play. I think he played like the 89th minute, 90th minute. So I mean, that tells you a lot that this team, whether they're ready to move on or he was ready to move on, he was not a key player for them this past season. And obviously we see him Uldi Almeria. There's the speculation that it's reported that his selling clause is 11 million to 19 million dollars. I don't know what goes into it. I'm assuming Almeria has to make it to the second division, but there's a lot of ifs on that, and I don't know. I know some LAFC fans may not like to hear this because the way Brian Rodriguez forced his way out pretty much said that he's not coming back to Los Angeles, that he wanted to go to Europe, essentially forced LAFC's hand. But I don't know if we'll see the last of Brian Rodriguez with LAFC, because I think $11 million is a lot to ask. And if the market was hot for Brian Rodriguez, I think we would have saw it in the last transfer window. And he went to a second division Spanish team, and I don't think that's what we were all expecting.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're like in third place right now in the second division. And there's like a playoff system with them. It's like the first two teams automatically go up. So if they get into that playoff scenario and don't get up, I don't really see them being able to fork over the fee that would be needed to acquire him from LAFC permanently. It's really unfortunate, that he forced his way out, and that really severs the ties, or the relationship between the player and the fans when a player does that. So ultimately, you would hope that the decision that he made to force his way out would is something that he looks back on and could say that it was a good decision ultimately, because right now it's looking inconclusive, really.
Yeah, if I can just add, I think obviously, I don't know. We don't know the clause. The team hasn't disclosed the clause, but for me, I think I want him to move on, and I want LAFC to move on, because I think that's the best scenario, right? I don't know if you want him to come back, but the door is open. Bob Bradley had said, and Bob Bradley has to leave the door open, because I don't know if Almeria has made an offer for him, right? Because I think you would know at this point if they're interested or not. Their season ends in next month,
Right.
So within a month their season ends, and typically when a player's been there, you kind of we'll fork over the cash, and that hasn't been the case. But I just hope that for both parties it works out for both, because Brian Rodriguez goes, he gets to be in Europe, he gets to do what, but then that also opens up a DP spot for LAFC during the summer transfer window, and then it gets exciting for LAFC. It really gets exciting. So that's really my hope, that both parties win in that situation.
Mm-mm. So, Baird, Vela, Rossi, is that the most dangerous front line in the MLS in your mind?
I think it's going to be. I mean, it's dangerous. I mean, when you have Vela and Rossi, I mean, who's going to argue with that, right? Obviously, that's starting any defense that sees that. But I think it's going to be what Baird does, right? What if he understands his role and what he needs to do, because there's going to be points where we've seen they shut down Carlos Vela, or for whatever reason Diego Rossi doesn't have it that night or whatever. If Corey Baird can step up and score goals and do what he's asked, right? We're not expecting him to score 20 goals like Carlos Vela, Diego Rossi. We're not expecting that out of him. But if there's going to come a point in this season that Corey Baird is going to be asked to do, whether he knows it or not, and I'm assuming he's preparing for this, that he's going to have to, he's going to have a breakaway goal, and he needs to put it away to help LAFC win, right? And if you can do that, then yeah, you that's a dangerous attack, because if Corey Berry understands what he needs to do, he scores a couple goals, he gets assists, right? He understands his role. But I think the thing with Brian Rodriguez, he didn't really understand his role at times. He didn't really understand what he needed to do for the team. He needed to put the team first before putting in some first. And I think I see that more of Corey Baird. But if for whatever reason Corey Baird isn't able to cut it or whatever, a name that I really like is Danny Masovsky. I really like Danny Masovsky. I've been seeing the last two preseason games. He's gotten a couple minutes there, but then after the preseason game, LAFC has a second team, and they have a scrimmage that they played, and the last two scrimmages, Danny Masovsky has scored goals, against other teams, right? But I think when you're scoring goals, you're in rhythm. That shows a lot. And Danny Masovsky is a true number 9. So I like him, depending how the game flow is and what LAFC is looking to do. But then you also got a third option, potentially fourth option. You got Mahala and potentially Christian Torres. Those two players could definitely add a lot. So LAFC has a lot of depth in that third spot. But I think you want to see Corey Baird. If it's going to be Corey Baird, you want to see Corey Baird paid maybe 70, 80, 90 minutes and do what he needs to do, because you don't want to see it like he plays one game, he's not cutting it, then Danny Masovsky comes in and you go down the line. You don't want that to happen if you're LAFC. You want someone that consistent with the front three so they can all get to know each other.
Yeah, what we're looking for is that chemistry and that balance, right? Because you're just looking for that other person to come in and help Diego Rossi and Carlos Vela just, you know, do what they do. When I first started watching the team, the first thing I noticed was just they had such a good chemistry, and being able to switch spots and being able to play Vela off wide and also play him through the center. I think they have a lot of depth and quality and intricacy in that attack that other teams don't really have. And it's very advanced, in my opinion. I think Bob Bradley has done a really amazing job getting that team to play at a high level and be so, so dangerous and be able to beat teams in different ways. And as you've said, they have depth, in those positions. I really like how Bradley makes sure that he has Vela. He can play him through the 9 position, but if, push comes to shove, he can always bring somebody else on and put Vela off wide. So there's a lot of options there, which is really, really good. And ultimately they're good options. So can't really complain about that. But one of my favorite players besides the obvious of Vela and Rossi is Atuesta. I think he's the key to everything for me. When I watch the way that he plays in that midfield, I think he unlocks everything that LAFC does. How important is he to this side this season?
Yeah, I mean, I've said on my podcast, to people, I think it's no secret, right? He's the one that, he's a basketball reference. He's a point guard of the team. He runs everything. He runs the show, right? And you clearly saw how the team looks without him and how he looks with them, right? You saw in the CCL final with Tigres. Obviously, unfortunate for Eduardo Tosa, he was not available. 20 LAFC was 20 minutes away from winning the final, and I think where they started to lose that game was because of the midfield. And if right, one can only wonder if Eduardo Tosa was playing, would have LAFC won it? I think we all would say yes, right, because we know what Eduardo Tosa can do. But I think what he does, and sometimes in his passing, he's such an underrated player within the league, because he's not as flashy, right? He's not as flashy. He's not scoring the goals like Diego Rossi or Carlos Vela. But like what he does in that midfield and how he controls the game, and when he knows when to pass it, when he knows when to control the game, that's what you need, right? Well, that's what you need, what the most important player on your team to do, and he does it really well. And I think another thing too, that there's also been rumors and speculations that Palmeiras has been interested in him. This is his final year with LAFC, so I know LAFC is interested in re-signing him, but I think some of the speculation is Eduardo Tuesta potentially wants more money, wants DP money. So, they be careful, because Eduardo Tuesta could also be a name that could be moved in the summertime. So there's two different things that right now the LAFC are dealing with Eduardo Tuesta. As far as I know, Eduardo Tuesta is happy with LAFC, but a player that talented, I think you got to think to yourself, right? If he's been with LAFC, I think 4 years now. He potentially wants another challenge, right? Where would the other challenge be? I'm assuming Europe, but I think hearing that LAFC is open to potentially selling and trading players to South America. So if he's ready for the next challenge, then I think the door is open. I've been told the door is open for him, but I think if for whatever reason LAFC don't sign him or don't sell him this summer, then Eduardo Tuesta gets to walk away for free. But that if he walks away for free, that means LAFC is going for MLS Cup. They're going to be the best team, right? So it's a give or take. Do you sell him and get something for him during the summertime? And the best, the most important piece to your team leaves in the summertime, but you get money, you get something in exchange for that, or do you not do that trade in the summertime and you keep them there and you keep that team together? But the only caveat to that is at the end of the season he walks away for free. So those are the two scenarios right now that LAFC are dealing with.
That's so interesting. He's definitely the key to unlock everything at LAFC. Like you said, he's underrated, but I think probably amongst LAFC fans, he has a special place in the team's heart. He's special in everything that they do, but they do have depth. In the midfield. Five legitimate starters and obviously a Tuesta, Blessing, Mark Anthony K, Cifuentes, and Janela. Competition is pretty fierce in there. Who starts? Who are the three midfielders that start against Austin FC? What do you
Yeah,
think?
so I think this is a great question because the LAFC midfield, there's two spots that are not spoken for in this team, and it's the midfield, and also goalkeeping. So those are two spots. We'll get into defense. I think Tristan Blackman's going to be starting right back, but we'll get into that later. In the midfield, obviously it's going to be a Tuesta. It's going to be Latif Blessing. So the third spot is going to be between Mark Anthony K and Jose Cifuentes. In the first preseason game with New England, Jose Cifuentes started the game, and then Mark Anthony K subbed in. In the second preseason game, Mark Anthony K started, and then Jose Cifuentes came in. If you're asking me personally, I prefer Jose Cifuentes slightly because of what he can produce. He's a more of a physical body, and I think he's Eduardo Tuesta's replacement if Eduardo Tuesta does leave this summer um or at the end of this year. I think he's going to be that replacement, and I think he also can shoot. He does a few different things. He can shoot from outside the team. He's very aggressive, and I think he can go the full 90 minutes. Now, I think Bob Bradley, from what I've seen, may start Mark Anthony K, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think Mark Anthony K, he didn't finish the season strong last season, and I know a lot of fans have been on him, and he and Latif Blessing have been in speculations and trade rumors and stuff. But I think whether it's K or Jose Cifuentes, one of those two coming off the bench, I think you see the depth, right? That's a good problem to have. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if for whatever reason K gets a start and he's not cutting air a couple games in, then you see Jose Cifuentes start, because I mean I think that's the good problem to have, excuse me. But I would go with Jose Cifuentes because of what I've seen, and then I would sub in Mark Anthony K. But either of those two, I wouldn't fight you over it.
Like you said, good problem to have. Having that type of depth is invaluable, especially when the season starts, getting longer, the minutes start getting in the legs, and you get some little injuries here and there, knocks here and there. It's good to have like for like replacements or quality replacements, overall. So really can't complain about that. But you were starting in on talking about the defense. What do you envision being the most ideal back four plus goalkeeper for LAFC this season with the new people integrated and things like that?
Yeah, I think we kind of saw their starting lineup. On the defensive side, I think obviously we're going to start Chiqui Palacios on the left hand side. You have Eddie Segura and Jesus Murillo in the middle. That's both center backs, and obviously Tristan Blackman. Um, for a long time, I thought Tristan Blackman. I thought Kim Won was going to get the start because of all the hype behind Kim Won, and all the promotional stuff that we saw. I thought Kim Won was a starter, and also they're paying Kim Won more than $600,000. So I was like, okay, hey, typically when you spend more money on a player, that means you value him more, you pay him more, you expect him to start. But it looks like Kim Won, for whatever reason, is not ready. He's dealing with a knee injury. I don't know how that happened, but I think Tristan Blackman at right back is it's a solid starter. He's a player that. The more he plays, the better he gets. from since he joined LAFC, he's gotten better and better and better. And there was at times last season during the regular season that Tristan Blackman was not as strong, but I think he really finished the season strong. You saw him play against Tigres, LAFC's biggest game, obviously, against Tigres, and he killed it. He did a phenomenal job, and I expect Tristan Blackman to bring that again this season. And you also got a U.S. men's national team call up this year, so you see the work there, you see the work rate, right, and you see the acknowledgement for the U.S. Whenever you get a national team call up, that goes to show that, hey, the eyes are on you and people are seeing what you're doing. Unfortunately, I think he had a concussion and wasn't able to partake with them. I think the most interesting thing right now, because of this last preseason game, what we saw Eddie Segura, made a couple lackadaisical defensive errors that led to two. I couldn't see. So this preseason, they weren't wearing numbers. I don't know why they weren't wearing numbers in the back of the jerseys. Chiqui Palacios and Eddie Segura have very similar skin tone. So if you're looking right, we're in the press box, you can't really tell. So I thought it was Eddie Segura. Some people thought it was Chiqui Palacios, but nevertheless, it didn't look good when New England scored those two to three goals, and that partly was because of the defense. And I think that has been LAFC's biggest Achilles, right? We talked about the high power offense, but I think you want to be able to feel comfortable that your defense can hold it down. If Tristan Blackman can hold it down, Eddie Segura has been able to hold it down the first couple of seasons with LAFC. But I think you don't want this team to be getting scored on. You want this team to score, but not getting scored on like they did last year, because you can't be trading goals. You're not going to win, right? You're not going to win with the high power offense and playing the 4-3-3 system, which is going to demand a lot of your defense, right? It's mostly, that's what the 4-3-3 is, right? It's attack minded. But if you don't have the defense for it, then it's not going to end well. And we saw that with LAFC last year during the regular season. Now, I don't expect that to happen. I expect, Diego Palacios, Eddie Segura, because they also picked up some depth. They got Marco Farfan this offseason, I believe, from the Portland Timbers. They also got, obviously Kim Moon whenever he's ready. If for whatever reason Eddie Segura is not doing good in the center back, then you do have Tristan Blackman, who can also play center back. And then you have Kim Moon on the right back. But I don't know if you want to do that. You want to make sure your starters play starter roles and play in the same position, right, bearing injury, anything like that. But I think the biggest question is going to be, how strong can this defense really be? Because when you're playing that 4-3-3 defense, you're going to be countered attacked a lot. And we know Seattle Sounders has been able to expose LAFC. And the biggest caveat to this is, I think the weakest position LAFC has is the goalkeeper. As a goalkeeping position, because I feel like, right, I've asked Bob Bradley, the first preseason game, like, hey, do you have an idea? He just paraphrased, he was like, oh, we're still deciding. So I asked him again, and, he didn't want to give an answer. But I feel like if you don't know who your goalkeeper is during the preseason, then I feel like either one or two things, like you don't have the confidence in the goalkeeper, or the goalkeeper hasn't showed that they're the number one, right? And I think that is what LAFC from the start of the franchise. Some people will say with Tyler Miller, but I think Tyler Miller at times was inconsistent. But they haven't had a goalkeeper that you feel like, okay, if they get past our defense, we got our goalkeeper. I don't think LAFC fans feel that way about their goalkeeper. Now, Pablo Cisneros could change that. Kenneth Vermeer can change that, but we didn't see that clear. I looked at the other goalkeeper of New England. He started both games. That's typically what your starter does. And I'm kind of more on the mindset, right? If you have two, you're right, you're still contemplating between two goalkeepers, then I feel like you have two backups. You don't really have one.
Not knowing who your starting goalkeeper is about 4 days away from the start of the season is very troubling for me. I think it would be more likely, it's like, well, maybe this person can play up front. Maybe this person might, be good for the midfield, but the goalkeeper situation should really be solidified. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on, but earlier I was listening to, one of those rooms on Twitter. I don't even know what they call them. It's like the equivalent to Clubhouse. And they were talking about the power rankings. LAFC are ranked second in the MLS power rankings for this season. Fair? Is that fair to you?
Yeah, you would expect them with the team with Carlos Vela, with the limited amount of turnover they had, right? I mean, let me just say, power rankings are power rankings. Yeah, I want to see how they do against Seattle. If we look at the first 4 games, they got Austin FC. We're not familiar with Austin FC, how strong they can be really strong or they can't, right? And then second game at home is against Seattle Sounders. That's the game I'm really going to be looking at because that's been LAFC's Achilles heel has been the Seattle Sounders, especially in the playoffs. Then you got Houston Dynamo. That looks like a gimme, and then you also got LA Galaxy away, right? So those first 4 games, you have potentially one game that I see if you caught quote unquote an easy game, right? But 3 of those 4 games, I think those are going to be tough for LAFC. And starting with Austin FC, they should be ranked high, but I think also LAFC has to prove that they deserve to be ranked high, right? And I know teams and players or whatever they don't care about that, but I feel like some do, right? Because that comes with expectations, right? If the MLS, if the league, right, if the league journalists and all these people are putting you at number 2, there is a lot of expectation that is expected of you, of the fans, the league, and rightfully should be. Is it that they need to win MLS Cup? Is it that they need to win US Open Cup? Is it they need to win Supporter Shield? I think if you ask the LAFC fan, yeah, we need to win all 3 of those, right? But I think realistically, if you're able to win 2 of those 3, or one of those 3, hoping you think it's the MLS Cup, right? Because that's been the one that LAFC have not gone yet outside the U.S. Open Cup, right? But I think that, and that's also the other trophy that Carlos Vela is missing from that playing his play days in the MLS, right? So yeah, I do think it's right to put him up there number 2. I think Columbus Crew is the strongest team. With the limited amount of turnover that LAFC has, you expect them to be ranked high, but I also want them to prove it, because I think the biggest concern that I have about this team is that defense and goalkeeper. Because if you don't have a goalkeeper, just to go back on that point, you don't have that vocal leader in the back, then regardless if you're ranked number 2, you have this high-powered offense. But if you can't hold it down in the defense, it's not going to be good.
100%. I totally, we're eye to eye on the expectation things. You could feel it, that there's expectations of this team that's very, very high. And, Bob Bradley and the team, especially like this core group, you spoke about, Atuesta maybe leaving and Diego Rossi. These players are starting to get eyes from other places. And you would like to see this core group accomplish something together before potentially having to look at other options. I think this team is so exciting. A lot of good talent. Whenever I watch them play, I'm just like on the edge of my seat, like what is going to happen today? So hopefully that excitement, for the season can manifest itself in good results, and they can win some things. So
yeah, let me just say this:
ahead.
they have won Supporter Shield, because I know I get that a lot from LAFC fans. When I don't mention that, so they have won Supporter Shield, but I think the biggest trophy, right, in MLS is the MLS Cup, right? I think LAFC, whether they like it or not, they're going to be judged on how they do in the MLS Cup and the MLS playoffs. They're going to be judged by that because of who they have, right? If Diego Rossi leaves, then you can replace him potentially with Corey Berry, depending how Corey Berry does. And then you could use the other DP player, spot for someone else. There's a lot of possibilities. But I think at the end of the day, LAFC is going to be judged by how they do in the MLS Cup.
Bare minimum, what do they have to get this season? Bare minimum to be a success. Bare minimum.
I mean, that's tough. I mean, I know. I think with the expectation and what you have, right, there's a caveat that I'm gonna put in there, right? And I'm gonna give you 2 answers, but I'm gonna give you the answer. Because if Diego Rossi and Eduardo Atuesta leave in the summer, then it makes it hard, right? I think the expectations still shift a little bit, but I think you have some of those pieces that could potentially fill that. Say if Diego Rossi leaves, you can slide in potential Corey Berry, play at the wing, but you also have another DP spot that you can go get another winger, center forward, or whatever, right? So I think if those 2 players leave, then they may dip a little bit, but with the continuity and everything that they have, I expect them, to make it to a final. I expect it to make it to the MLS Cup playoffs final, because this is the 4th year. The least amount of turnover, because anything is rightfully so. And it's not going to be easy. You got Seattle, LA Galaxy look pretty strong as well. I know they're not ranked high, but they look pretty strong. They look pretty coached as well. LAFC and LA Galaxy games are also, they're a toss up. They're a coin flip. It's not going to be an easy game. It doesn't matter which team is rolling high or not. Those are
The
trap
typical
games.
derby.
It doesn't,
Typical
yeah,
derby.
yeah, typical derby, right? It doesn't matter, right? But I think for LAFC, with the star power that they have, with Carlos Vela, I believe is the best player in MLS. And if they don't make it to an MLS Cup final, then I know a lot of people are going to be concerned and stuff. Obviously injuries happen, but we're saying they're healthy and everything. I think an MLS Cup final.
Mm. Well, we'll see how everything shakes out. Saturday, 3 p.m., very first game against Austin FC. Hopefully the win is there and start off the season on a good note. But I think we've also started this podcast, on a good note. You have been an amazing, amazing guest, Gio. Thank you so much for being a part of the pilot episode of LAFC Radio.
Hey, thank you, Jessica. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and hopefully you got some out of me. Just talking a lot. Obviously
I
I do
love
this,
it.
but yeah, no, I wish you best success. With everything you do. Here covering LSC. It's a very, very, very talented team. The league is it's growing. So I mean, like, I'm along for the ride. So if you ever need anything, hit me up.
Of course, 100%. So, you guys, this is obviously the pilot, more to come. New shows every Wednesday. Make sure that you are following LAFC Radio on Instagram and on Twitter. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another show. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Peace.